Okay, we are live and recording. I will now let in all of the participants and then we can start the meeting. And we can begin.
Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 7:02 p.m. Welcome to the Monday, August 10th, 2020 City of Burlingame Planning Commission meeting. For all in attendance today, please note that this meeting is being streamed live on YouTube and will be uploaded to the city's website after the meeting. As a courtesy during the proceedings, we ask that you place yourselves on mute as sound transfers easily and can be disruptive. Please note that there are several ways to submit comments during this meeting. You may send your comments by email to publiccomment@burlingame.org. Staff will be monitoring emails submitted during the evening, which will be read at the appropriate time. The length of the emailed comment should be commensurate with the 3 minutes customarily allowed for verbal comments. You may also submit your comment using chat in Zoom by clicking on the chat button located at the bottom of your screen. Staff will then read the comment at the appropriate time. Lastly, you may raise your hand in Zoom by clicking on the participant button located at the bottom of your screen and then click Raise Hand. Members of the public who are participating in the Zoom meeting by phone can dial *9 to raise a hand. So I'd like to move to agenda item number 2, roll call. The record should note that 6 members of our commissioners are present this evening. I believe that is correct. Is Commissioner Sargent here now?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so we have
I'm here.
Thank you. We have 6 commissioners present. Note that Commissioner Loftus is absent. On to agenda item number 3, approval of minutes. We have meeting minutes to review and approve from the July 13th regular Planning Commission meeting. Are there any comments, changes, or discussions regarding these July 13th minutes? Seeing none.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
make a motion to approve the amended minutes, the revised minutes.
I second that.
Thank you. I have a motion by Commissioner Terrace, seconded by Commissioner Sargent. Any discussion on this motion for approval of the July 13th minutes? If not, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'll be recusing from the July 13th meeting as I was not present
You'll be recusing from the vote?
for the July 13th meeting. That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Camarado,
Aye.
Commissioner Sargent,
Aye.
Commissioner Schmidt, Commissioner Schmidt. You may have to unmute yourself.
Commissioner Schmidt, can you unmute yourself, please?
He was logged off. Now he's logging back in. Just give him 1 second here.
Okay.
Commissioner Schmidt, do we have a yes vote for the July 13th Planning Commission meeting minutes? Commissioner Schmidt, can you hear?
Yeah,
us?
sorry about that. I had a computer problem and I switched devices.
Great,
Yes, the meeting minutes are fine.
great, thank you. And lastly, Chair Say.
Aye.
Commissioner
So,
Cronus, aye.
I'm sorry,
Skip me, Ruben.
Oh, Commissioner
Commissioner
Torres.
Tronis.
Aye. Sorry.
What is your vote, Commissioner Tronis?
Aye.
Okay, we have, the motion passes 5011. Moving on to agenda item number 4, approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to tonight's agenda?
There are no changes from staff.
Thank you. Do we have any recusals? I see Commissioner Toronis' hand up, but maybe that's from the past. Nope. Okay, so we will then move on to agenda item number 5, public comments, non-agenda items. Members of the public may speak about any item not on the agenda. Members of the public wishing to suggest an item for a future Planning Commission meeting may do so during the public comment period. The Ralph Brown Act, which is the state local agency open meeting law, prohibits the Planning Commission from acting on any matter that is not on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. A timer will sound at the end of the time. And I may adjust the time limit in light of the number of anticipated speakers. Please speak clearly into the microphone. Do we have any members of the public who wish to speak on an item that is not on our agenda this evening? Seeing none, we will move on to the next item. Agenda item number 6, study items. We have no study items this evening. So we'll move on to agenda item number 7, which is the consent calendar. Items on the consent calendar are considered to be routine. They are acted on simultaneously unless separate discussion and/or action is requested by the applicant, a member of the public, or a commissioner prior to the time the commission votes on the motion to adopt. We have one item on the consent calendar, which is 10 Bancroft Road. Would any member of the public or the applicant like to pull this item for discussion? Or does any member of the Planning Commission want to pull this item for discussion? Do we see anything in our emails, chat box?
There are no emails regarding this application.
Okay, so if it looks like we can move on to motion, I'd like to move that we approve this the consent calendar item.
I'll second that.
All right, thank you. We have a motion by myself, Commissioner Say, seconded by Commissioner Camarado. Any discussion on the motion? May we please have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Camarado,
Aye.
Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Sargent,
Aye.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Aye.
Commissioner Torres,
Aye.
Chair Say.
Aye. Motion passes 6-0-0-1. An action by the Planning Commission's appealable to the City Council within 10 days of the Planning Commission's action. If the Planning Commission's action has not been appealed or called up for review by the City Council by 5 p.m. on the 10th day, the action becomes final. In order to be effective, appeals must be in writing and must be accompanied by an appeal fee of $1,075, which includes noticing costs. Congratulations. Moving on to agenda item 8, regular action items. We have item 8A, 2625 Martinez Drive. For any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? See none. Let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. May we have a staff report, please?
Sure, this is an application for design review, hillside area construction permit, and special permit for a new one-story single-family dwelling with an attached garage at 2625 Martinez Drive, zoned R1. The total proposed floor area would be 3,962 square feet, or 4,370 square feet is the maximum allowed, and this includes the attached garage. The application includes the following requests: design review, hillside area construction permit, and a special permit for an attached garage. At the Planning Commission action meeting on June 8th, the Commission continued the project, noting that there were still concerns regarding the proposed house blocking long-distance views. The applicant submitted revised plans dated July 24th and a response letter dated July 27th to address the Commission's concerns. In summary, the second story has been eliminated from the project. The project is now a one-story single-family dwelling. At this time, I'd be happy to take questions for staff. Otherwise, the applicant is also available.
Are there any questions for staff? Okay, if not, I am going to open the public hearing. Would the applicant please come forward and state your name and anything else you'd like to add about your project?
Hello, this is Leonard, architect for the project. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, yes, the last meeting that we reviewed this project was June 8th, and we thank the commissioners for their review and feedback. At that meeting, we primarily focused our presentation on how we designed the home. Back then was a two-story home, how we designed the home to fit in with the neighborhood based on neighborhood pattern, integrating the second story and reducing overall height, bulk, and mass, and through material detailing and landscape. I think the main concern that was raised from the meeting is that one of our neighbors on Truesdale Drive had some view issues. And so right after the meeting, the owners and I reached out to them and studied the vantage, and we've worked hard to redesign the home now as a one-story, much lower, more compact one-story home that still is designed with the same character, spirit, and ethos of the original two-story design. And so in summary, as a single-story design, we are much lower. Is it possible to go to the next slide? Yes, and this was the previous design. And next slide. And so as you can see from the color diagram, the orange dashed lines represented our two-story project previously, and we've redesigned the home to a one-story. So we've reduced the overall height of the home by almost 10 feet, reduced the home size in terms of simple square footage by almost 400 feet, and we're about 17 feet to 18 feet below the height limit. I think in terms of massing, materials, detailing, I think all the, hopefully the merits that we had from the two-story design have been carried on continuously here. And so given the major height reduction and, trying to be a good neighbor, hopefully the commission will find these revisions agreeable. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Sargent? Oh, no. Commissioner Terrones?
Yes, thank you. Leonard, this is Commissioner Terrones.
Hi.
Hi, just a simple question. I don't know if you have this information and it's not super critical, but just curious. Do you have an approximate estimate of the existing height of what you're now proposing versus the existing overall height of the existing structure that's on site now?
I'm not 100% sure of the existing height of the existing structure, but I believe our overall height along the front of the building is about at the mid roof. Well, we have several tiers, right? There's the lower roof at the garage, and then on the left side it steps up a little bit. I would say it's like in the 10 to 12 feet range between those two.
Okay. Okay, just curious. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions? Seeing none, do we have any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? Do we have any questions in our email?
No comments or questions over email.
Okay, with that, I'm going to close the public hearing. Commissioners, comments? Commissioner Terrace?
Yeah. Well, the main issue, the main outstanding issue, I think, for me, and it seemed like the majority of the commission was the height, was the view issue relative to the hillside area construction permit. I believe, as has been stated previously, I can make the findings. I believe we can make the findings for the special permit for the attached garage, in that it's similar to the pattern of the neighborhood. From a design review standpoint, I've said before that I think where they've landed generally with the design, which obviously previously was a one-story, I believe is supportable. It's very scale and detail to many of the Eichler homes that are up there in the neighborhood. It's clearly not an Eichler home, but nonetheless, it's very similar in scale and proportion. It speaks of house. It looks like a house. It has a residential feel to it. I think the project is supportable at this point.
Commissioner Schmidt?
I fully agree. I think that the issue for me previously was just the height and trying to make that work with the neighbors. And I think that they've done a good job here at rearranging their plan to make it work so that they could do the single level. And I applaud the effort.
Commissioner Camerado?
I agree with my fellow commissioners, and I thank the applicant for making these changes and working with the neighborhood and the neighbors to not impact the views. And I can support the project as well with the attached garage, and I feel that this project would fit nicely in that area.
Any other comments? I will say ditto to agree with my fellow commissioners. Thank you very much for working so hard with the neighborhood and addressing our comments throughout this process. I think the house is still beautifully designed, and I can see as well this fitting in and it being approvable. And at this time, I'd like to make a motion to approve this project. I'm looking for a second.
I'll second that motion.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Say, seconded by Commissioner Camerado. Is there any discussion on the motion? Looks like none. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Camerado,
Aye.
Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Sargent,
Aye.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Aye.
Commissioner Terrace,
Aye.
Chair Say.
Aye. The motion passes 6-0-0-1. An action by the Planning Commission is appealable to the City Council within 10 days of the Planning Commission's action. If the Planning Commission's action has not been appealed or called up for review by the City Council by 5 p.m. on the 10th day, the action becomes final. In order to be effective, appeals must be in writing and must be accompanied by an appeal fee of $1,075, including noticing costs. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. So moving on to agenda item 8B, we have 1345 Balboa Avenue. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? Commissioner Schmidt?
Yes, I spoke with the architect about the material changes.
Thank you. Let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. Can we have a staff report, please?
This is an application for design review amendment for as-built changes to a previously approved design review application for a major renovation and first and second story addition to an existing single-family dwelling at 1345 Balboa Avenue, zoned R1. Following the approval of the design review application in June of 2016, and design review amendment approval in January of 2018, and issuance of a building permit, the property owner has decided to make several modifications to their project. They are requesting that the commission now review and approve the as-built changes listed in your staff report. The applicant is available to answer any questions you may have, but first, do you have any questions for staff?
Are there any questions for staff? Commissioner Gall?
Yeah, Ruben, I apologize for the question because I helped to write the rules on air conditioning units. But what was where can those be located?
So under that ordinance, air conditioners can now be located along the side of the house as long as they're within the rear 75% of the lot, and as long as they're not between the front of the house and the front property line. So typically 75% usually starts at around the front of the house and goes back. But I don't know exactly where these are located, but it is within 75%.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Going to open the public hearing. Would the applicant please come forward, state your name, and add anything else you'd like to about your project?
Hi, it's Rob Waymeyer at Waymeyer Design. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay. So this is a project we were brought into. The original designer on the project, about a year after they started this, we were brought in to kind of help redesign it a little bit and do the construction. When we started the process, we came up with an amendment that we brought forth, which was approved by the Planning Commission. And it was one of those things where it, unfortunately for us, when we started in the field with the owner, it started to look better on paper and in design than it did out in the field. All the stonework that we were looking at putting on the front that the owner requested, when we started putting it together and got to that stage, it looked really, really heavy, and it looked completely out of scale, and it looked way too busy in comparison with the homes that are surrounding it in the neighborhood. We also had a framing issue that looked odd on the left side of the house, as you can see from the front, where it's a shed roof back, and then there's a hip roof down below that runs along the south side of the property. What we ended up doing is they chose to really integrate the landscaping part with the house itself. There's originally a brick wall in the front of the property right along the right of way. We actually pulled that back and we put in a planter made out of natural wood and with Ipe trim that really steps back from the yard. Steps back from the street to kind of help reduce the blockiness and the massing and the size of everything. We did kind of take that roof area and we hipped it, turning that corner so it didn't feel so big and bulky again on the front elevation. Whereas originally how it was laid out, it looked very big. And the stone itself, it gave us the feeling of it being almost 3 stories. The way the lot's, it's a split level, and the way it's kind of set up on the lot there, it really felt that illusion of 3 stories on there, which is, there aren't really many houses on the street that even have that look to it. So in simplifying that, we brought more of the natural products in. We used natural wood and Ipe for the front. The savings and the changes they made were not for cost savings reasons at all. It really was based on just aesthetic and not making the house just stand out like a sore thumb from everything else with the amount of masonry that was put on the front. The dimension of the woodworking, the dimension of the Ipe, the cable rails, all a little more transparent, a little bit lighter. And the scale and dimensions for the wood itself, as well as the fascia boards, the trim, all of that scales down a little bit to be a little better in proportion with the, with the neighborhood than what was originally there. In regards to the, to Commissioner Gall's comment about the air conditioning units, we do have those placed on the side, and there is intentions from the owner to also screen them at some point along the side of that when they work with the south side neighbor on a fencing solution between their driveway and the side yard. That's it. I'm here to answer any questions that you guys may have.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Gall?
Yeah, hi, Rob.
Hey, Mike.
So I guess the air conditioning units, it sounds like, fall into the locations that we've approved. But is there, so you said there's going to be a fence or something, or some screening?
Yeah,
There's
an older couple. Yeah, there's an older couple that lives on the south side of that property, and their driveway is quite steep and it goes up a little bit farther. And there's about a 2.5 foot retaining wall at that point where the front of the house lines up with their driveway. So the intent is, the older couple doesn't exactly know what they're doing yet, because it's the walls technically on their property, but we're looking at putting a gate from the street. So the whole view you have now down the side of the property and look back to the planting beds that the homeowner installed, you won't see any of that because it's going to be blocked off with a fence. So it minimizes the entire look from the front. We're going to also replicate that on the north side of the house, on the garage side, with a similar gate to be able to close that off to the back as well.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Let's see, is that, oh, can we hold for just one moment? I have to let all the commissioners speak first. And looks like we're done there. So we can, are there any members of the public who would like to speak on this item?
Yeah, actually, I live next door.
Oh, hello.
Hi, I'm Paul. I'm next door at 14 Bancroft. I came in the meeting late, but I'm curious about the trees, the redwood trees that are out front. Are those going to be taken down?
I don't know where Bancroft comes into play with this house.
Sorry, Mr. Sherman, the 10 Bancroft project has already been reviewed by the Planning Commission earlier this evening. They approved the project, but we can certainly answer your questions if you contact the Planning Division staff tomorrow.
I will do that. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, do we have any other comments from the public? Any questions? Anything from email?
There are no comments in email.
Okay.
No chats.
No chats, I see. So with that, I'll close the public hearing. Commissioners, any comments? Commissioner Charonis?
Thank you. Well, as typical in situations like this, I have to ask myself again, would I have approved this project if it came before us this way? And honestly, I can't say that I would not have approved it. You know, I don't, you know, looking at the stone, yes, it may give some scale. I can understand the argument though from the applicant or the designer that that stone might make it look like a third story. I think what they've done is good looking. It enhances the project, the natural feel of the wood. A lot of it's going to get covered with landscaping, but I think it works rather well in terms of bringing some scale and detail to the house. I have to admit that I'm always a little bit nervous as to exactly what kind of stone is going to get put on a project when stone is proposed as a base to a house. It's very easy to pick a stone that's not natural, that's not indigenous to the area, that to make it help it look natural or like it might be from the local area. So I can support the project, and I think it's approvable with the changes that have been made.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Yeah, I wasn't part of the original group approving the design, but having been there today during my visit, I think that the step back on the front yard, using the wood down there as well as in the wood as it goes up the stairs and actually inside the vestibule itself, I think a lot of that really works well together. And I think that it is a very nice looking project in person. And I think that the solution would be very approvable if we were looking at it today.
Commissioner Sargent?
Yeah, I would agree. I think the changes are nice and it's a good finished project, and I move we approve it as proposed.
I'll
All
second,
right. Who was seconding that?
I'll second, Commissioner Torrones.
Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Sargent. Was it Commissioner Sargent? And
It was, yeah.
seconded by Commissioner Torrones. And do we have any discussion on the motion? Commissioner Camarado and Gall, did you want to add something?
I
Yes,
just
I
wanted-
did.
Oh, go ahead. No, go
Sandy.
ahead, go ahead.
Commissioner-
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate that I think that the project does need to have those gates on the side just for the security of the property. But also, just as a general comment to the applicant and anybody else who might be listening, we're always a little bit hesitant, or at least I am, when I get these changes and they've already been done. I agree with my fellow commissioners. I think the project looks better as it has been presented to us today and as it's finished out. I think the wood planter or retaining walls on the front are much better than the stone. They're much softer. However, if it was something that we disagreed with, then it puts the applicant and the property owner in a really bad situation. So I would encourage, like I say, any of the developers that are out there or the homeowners that are out there, that when these changes come about and they are going to require approval, to come to us before they happen so that we don't have to make tough decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Gall. That's a very good comment. So we have a motion by Commissioner Sargent, seconded by Commissioner Torrones. If there isn't any other further discussion on the motion, we can have a roll call vote.
Commissioner Camarado,
Aye.
Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Sargent,
Aye.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Aye.
Commissioner Torrones,
Aye.
Chair Say.
Aye. Motion passes 6-0-0-1. An action by the Planning Commission is appealable by the City Council within 10 days of the Planning Commission's action. If the Commission's action has not been appealed or called up for review by the City Council by 5 p.m. on the 10th day, the action becomes final. In order to be effective, appeals must be in writing and must be accompanied by an appeal fee of $1,075, which includes noticing costs. Congratulations. Moving on to item 8C, 887 Mitten Road. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? Seeing none, let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. May we please have a staff report?
Sure. Before I do that, I just wanted to test my microphone. Can you hear me?
Yes, much better.
Great. Okay, thank you. This is an application for commercial design review for substantial construction and a second-story addition to the existing commercial building, a conditional use permit for floor area, and parking variance at 887 Mitten Road, zoned Innovation Industrial. The proposed project includes rebuilding the first floor within the same footprint and a new second-story addition to an existing two-story commercial building. The proposed project includes 5,105 square feet of office on the first floor and 11,462 square feet of lab space on the second floor. The applicant is requesting approval of the following applications: commercial design review, conditional use permit for exceeding the maximum allowed 0.75 FAR, 1.49 FAR is proposed. Staff would note that of the gross floor area, 12,584 square feet of that exceeds 12 feet in ceiling height. And also a parking variance for aisle width in a portion of the parking area as you enter into the parking garage. At the Planning Commission Design Review Study meeting on June 22nd, the commission noted that they supported the request for a conditional use permit and parking variance. As requested by the commission, the applicant submitted the proposed building elevations in color, No other changes were made to the project since the design review study meeting. At this time, I can take questions of staff if you have any. Otherwise, the applicant is available.
Just a reminder, if you can please mute yourselves if you are not speaking. Thank you. Are there any questions for staff? Okay, seeing none. I'm going to open the public hearing. Would the applicant please come forward, state your name and anything else you'd like to add about your project?
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Mike Castro. I'm the architect for the project. And as staff was saying, we were reviewed on June 22nd. We had no comments on the design or any questions. And at this point, the design is unchanged, and we ask for your approval.
Okay, are there any questions for the applicant? Do we have any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? Were there any comments through our email?
Madam Chair, we have one email for this application. It is signed by Phyllis Lee, Office Administrator of Cotchett, Petrie and McCarthy LLP, and it reads, "Professional Peninsula Properties is in favor. Thank you."
Thank you.
And we do not have any messages in the chat.
All right. With that, I will close the public hearing. Commissioners, comments? Commissioner Terrones?
Thank you. Well, thank you, Mike, for submitting the colored renderings and elevations. What I suspected, or what we thought was previously true, that this was a well-crafted design, is even further borne out by the revised drawings that you submitted. So thank you very much. I think that the project is well designed. I think the variance is understandable based on the large volume of that new second floor. So I think the project is approvable at this point.
I would second that.
Was there a motion?
Okay, I'll make that a motion to approve based on the findings in the staff report.
All right. We have a motion by Commissioner Terrones, seconded by Commissioner Camarado. Is there any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Camarado,
Aye.
Commissioner Gall.
Aye.
Commissioner Sargent,
Aye.
Commissioner Schmid,
Aye.
Commissioner Terrones,
Aye.
Chair Say.
Aye. Motion passes 6-0-0-1. An action by the Planning Commission is appealable to the City Council within 10 days of the Planning Commission's action. If the Planning Commission's action has not been appealed or called up for review by the City Council by 5 p.m. on the 10th day, the action becomes final. In order to be effective, appeals must be in writing and must be accompanied by an appeal fee of $1,075, which includes noticing costs. Congratulations.
Thank you, Planning Commission.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Moving on to item 8D, 21 Park Road. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? Let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. May we have a staff report?
Yes, this is an application for design review amendment for changes to a previously approved 3-story, 7-unit residential condominium building at 21 Park Road, zoned BMU. The applicant is requesting approval to eliminate several windows on the south and north elevations and to change the size of some windows on the north elevation. The Planning Commission reviewed these changes as an FYI item on July 13th. the commission pulled the FYI item for further discussion, requesting that more detailed information be provided to explain why the proposed changes to the windows are being made. Explanation letters were submitted by the architect dated June 26th and July 20th. The project's structural engineer also submitted an explanation letter dated July 16th. The applicant is available to answer any questions you may have, but first, do you have any questions for staff?
Are there any questions for staff? Seeing none, I'm going to open the public hearing. Oh, looks like Commissioner Camarado, did you want to say something? Nope. I'm going to open the public hearing. With the applicant, please come forward, state your name and anything you'd like to add about your project.
Hello, this is Brian Yang with LDP Architecture. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Great. So yes, we just want to reiterate that the changes to the windows were made for structural reasons, as you saw evidenced in our structural engineer Miro's email. It is due to the shear walls and transferring all loads to the ground. The eliminated windows are, below other windows in the same stairwell within the unit, so they won't, those areas will still receive plenty of daylight. And those units are through the entire building, so front to rear. So there will be plenty of light from the rest of the unit on both sides, and adjacent windows are still remaining. And then the windows that were resized in the bedrooms were done so to maintain the rhythm of the adjacent elevation. And all these changes are on the side elevations, none are facing the street. And all our windows will still be recessed as previously proposed and approved during initial review. So with that, we hope that you find these changes to be acceptable, and we can answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Camarado? Commissioner Camarado, did you have a question for the applicant?
No, I just wanted to thank the applicant for their letter from the engineer. So I understand why the windows were removed and displaced. So I thank him for that.
Okay. And do we have any members of the public who'd like to speak on this item? Did we receive any emails?
No emails and nothing in the chat window either.
All right, with that, I will close the public hearing. Commissioners, comments? Commissioner Camarado?
Again, I thank the applicant for the clarification that I had a couple clarifications regarding the windows and light in the units. So I thank them for that, and I can see approving this project and having it move forward.
Would you like to make that a motion?
I make that a motion.
And I will second that motion. So we have a motion by Commissioner Camarado, seconded by Commissioner Say. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Camarado,
Aye.
Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Sargent,
Aye.
Commissioner Schmid,
Aye.
Commissioner Terrones.
Aye.
Chair Say.
Aye. The motion once again passes 6-0-0-1. An action by the Planning Commission is appealable to the City Council within 10 days of the Planning Commission's action. If the Commission's action has not been appealed or called up for review by the City Council by the 5 p.m. on the 10th day, the action becomes final. In order to be effective, appeals must be in writing and must be accompanied by appeal fees of $1,075, which includes noticing costs. Congratulations. Moving on to agenda item 8E, 1214 to 1220 Donnelly Avenue. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? Seeing none, let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. May we please have a staff report?
Yes, this is an application for mitigated negative declaration, amendment to the downtown specific plan and zoning code to allow multifamily residential use, conditional use permit for building height, condominium permit, and lot merger for construction of a new 3-story, 14-unit mixed-use commercial residential development at 1214 to 1220 Donnelly Avenue, zoned DAC. The proposal includes construction of a new 3-story mixed-use commercial residential development consisting of a commercial use on the ground floor and 14 residential units on the second and third floors. Parking for 23 vehicles will be provided in an enclosed garage behind the commercial space. The ground floor will consist of approximately 4,700 square feet of commercial space, which can be configured as 1 or 2 tenant spaces with storefront entrances on Donnelly Avenue. The remainder of the ground floor will contain rooms for utilities, resident bicycle storage, trash and recycling containers, as well as an entry court and a lobby, providing pedestrian access to the residential units on the second and third floors. The second and third floors will contain 12 2-bedroom units and 2 1-bedroom units for a total of 14 units. The residential units range in size from 528 square feet to 1,040 square feet. The applications that are required for this project include an amendment to the downtown specific plan and the DAC zoning district to allow residential uses above the first floor on properties located north of Donnelly Avenue that have sole frontage on Donnelly Avenue. Design review, conditional use permit for the building height, 43 feet 10 inches is proposed to the top of parapet, where a conditional use permit is required for any building exceeding 35 feet. A condominium permit, and lastly, a lot merger to combine the 3 existing lots into 1 lot for the proposed project. An initial study, mitigated negative declaration for the project was prepared, and it determined that there were no environmental impacts that were identified that could not be mitigated to less than significant levels. The 30-day public review period occurred from May 15th to June 15th, and no comments were received during that time. Representatives from Circle Point and W-Trans are available this evening should you have any questions regarding the CEQA document that was prepared for the project. Since the City Council is the final decision-making body regarding the request for an amendment to the downtown specific plan and the Donnelly Avenue Commercial District, this evening, your action should be in the form of a recommendation to the City Council, since the entire application will be forwarded to the Council for consideration. The applicant has a brief presentation prepared, but first, do you have any questions for staff?
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Seeing none, I'm going to open the public hearing. Would the applicant please come forward, state your name and anything you'd like to add about your project?
So good evening, Commissioners. Mark Hudak here. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Great, thank you. So I represent John Britton and his family on this project. It's the 3rd time we've been up for design review and the initial study with the commission. As Ruben mentioned, we have a clean mitigated negative declaration, so we have that behind us, hopefully. As far as I know, there have been no negative comments either to the mitigated neg deck or to the project itself, so that's good news. The project will help to activate what has been a pretty dead zone in the downtown area, so we think that that will be appreciated over time. And that this project will bring some additional residents who can patronize the downtown businesses while still having adequate parking for its own uses. And the zoning amendment that we're requesting is justified by the need for housing in the downtown area. And so also that there had been some residential use on these properties in the past. So allowing continued and somewhat expanded residential use is really not taking a huge step. So with that, I'm going to turn the presentation over to the project architect, and he'll explain the design changes that we made in response to the commission's comments last time through.
Can you hear me? It's Gary G Architects.
Yes, we can hear you. A little bit quiet.
You get closer to the mic. Is that helping? Because I have my volume up.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Thank you.
The first slide, please. Okay. In our last discussion about concerning design review, there was some concern by the commission regarding the deep blank walls near the balconies on the second and third floor. So we went back and looked at what other kind of creative visual interests we could create. One is we added some custom metal projections between the storefront windows and the central bay. These can be served as future banner mounts or signs for the commercial businesses. This gives details to the building and to the base of the building. Second, we added some decorative clay downspouts. They're non-functional. They were inserted at the walls where the second and third floor balconies were. Those were some of the concern of the blank area. It gives more visual interest. We can see that on the second slide, please. So now you see the projections of the clay tile downspouts on the third floor to the left, in the central bay on the second floor, and also to the right on the second floor. Also, in the center bay, you see those metal projection. That's actually a custom metal projection coming out. It's either for banners and other type of signs that could be used for the commercial space. The next slide, please. The other thing that was mentioned to us was there was maybe trying to create more horizontal features that would highlight the base of the building. We did change the color of the awning slightly to a softer, warmer yellow. The custom metal work adds to the strengthening of the base, commercial base look. And then also we made the windows deeper. The curved windows that you see there on the ground floor are actually 14 feet high from the sidewalk. So they really do read very deep as a commercial base element. Vertically, we decided to maybe, this was not a concern of the commission, but something we decided to do was to give the central bay a slightly earth tone white color, just to differentiate the center of the building and to break up the massing. The third slide, please. As you can see, the two ends are still the original colors of the soft white, and then in the center, it's a slightly earth tone, and that was to break the vertical massing up. And as I say, I think that the deeper windows, the windows measuring 14 feet in height, and the curved tops really give it the strengthening look of the commercial look on the ground floor. The interior of the commercial spaces are a minimum of 15 feet in height also. Okay, the next slide. You were to express some concern about the landscaping, adjacent landscaping, in particular to the north and at the corners of the building. We went out there and looked at what the conditions. There's an existing wood fence along the north property line, which is 7 feet 3 inches tall, and that's going to remain. We found substantial landscaping at the north west corner and even at the northeast corner, which we want to show you some slides. The next slide, please. Here you can see it from an aerial. That is the clouded areas on your left is the northwest corner. There's a large tree and large hedges. The hedges are approximately 14 feet high, and the tree may be as high as 38 feet high. And those are on the adjacent property facing our building. The fence you see in the center along the property line, and up on the top is that large landscaping that's approximately 22 feet high to 23 feet high, and it's at the northeast corner. The next slide, please. Here the picture on the left is actually from the municipal parking lot looking at the northwest corner. The tree, the hedges, the ivy is really part of the landscaping from the adjacent property. The picture on the right is overlooking the existing building on our site at the northwest corner. And as you can see, there's already a visual screening with this landscaping that's on the adjacent property. The next slide, please. Again, if we were to superimpose from the parking lot elevation of our building, you can see on the left, the green, the existing extent of the landscaping that's there. And that they do offer a visual screen to our walls, particularly on the north side, which I'll show you in a few slides. The next slide, please. Again, this is the northeast corner. We discovered this large planting on both sides, on both properties at the corner here. As you can see, they're pretty substantial and right against the property line. Next slide, please. From the east elevation, from the rear yard, this is how, in green, how that existing landscaping looks against our proposed wall, that's where our parking on the ground floor is located. And this, we estimated that landscaping is approximately 22, 23 feet high. The next slide, please. The north wall was some concern because of the profile of it and the height of it. So what we did is we removed a planter that was along the back wall. That was about 3 feet 6 to 4 feet high. We put a metal railing on there. We're able to lower the profile from the bottom of the railing to about 15 feet. Also, the decision to leave the existing fence also softens the exposure to the north wall. And the next slide shows you the north wall. Look, pardon me, this is actually, the next slide, please, Ruben, thank you. This is actually the terrace where we removed the 4-foot-high planter. This was just to show you the area that changed on this. And we put a walkway next to the metal railing, okay? The next slide. And this is our last slide. This is actually how you see the rear of the building now. As you can see on the left is the landscaping that's on the adjacent property, the 7-foot, 3-foot-high fence that you see there with the vertical boards. The diagonal is the existing carport at the property line. And to the right of that is the green hedges on the adjacent property, along with that tree that's there that acts as a screen. So all in all, with all the existing conditions that we inventory, it looks very much that the rear wall will be pretty much screened. And now that we put the handrails up there, the wall isn't solid. Actually, the solid portion is only 15 feet high. I'm available to answer any questions if you have any.
Are there any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Schmidt?
Yes, hi, I was there today looking, and along that rear property line where you're kind of discussing that wall now, I noticed that there are power poles and power lines running across the back of the property now, and wondering if there was a plan to deal with that, or is that going to be right in your little 15-foot to 20-foot visual?
We're going to keep the power pole there. I don't know if you look at sheet A 2.1, there's a little notch on the garage right in the middle. The power pole is located. So it was on our survey. We realized the power pole was there and serving some of the buildings along the back. So we made provisions to keep that power pole there.
So do we know, but I would think that that's going to be within grabbing range, standing at the railing.
What we could do is, we haven't surveyed the height of that. We could survey the height of that, and then we could coordinate if some of those things can be relocated or ways. We've done other projects. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, I have a couple more, if I can, while I've still got you. Noticing, where the mail area is in the lobby, it looks like it's just a mail area, and I'm wondering if you guys have considered, as this project has evolved, the change to lockers and the need for package delivery now, which seems to be so much more a part of multifamily now.
So what we typically do in many of these multifamilies, we have a locked room off the lobby, okay? And if you look on the plan behind the elevator, there's a utility room that gets a lock with a keypad or a fob to allow deliveries of packages. So then around the corner, no one sees it. It's a secure room, and that's what we plan to do with it. Okay.
Perfect. Then one last, downspouts.
Yes.
You know, there's a rather large 3-story downspout on the stair. Any thought of internalizing or maybe going around the corner on the minor wall?
I think there's flexibility to relocate that around the corner.
It stuck out to me when I was looking at the renderings and the elevations. Like, wow, I would love to have that on the side wall rather than the front wall. But
well, the eaves are going from, the eaves are.
Oh no, yeah, I get it.
But we could try to incorporate that either around the sidewall.
I mean, it just seems like such a strong element to then have to deal with the mountings and all of that to go along with.
No, we can accommodate that request.
So anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Commissioner Sharonis?
Thank you. Gary, could we, or I guess Ruben, could we go back to the sheet A 2.2, which shows the plan with the railing? Yeah, that one there.
Yeah.
Gary, I wanted to just dialogue a little bit with you because I'm a little concerned about, quite frankly, of the change from the planters that were along that wall. I understand that by putting the planters that are along that wall, you therefore have to have the more solid wall that creates that taller railing and therefore a taller wall to the rear yards. But being that it sounds like you and your team are a little bit more familiar now with what's happening on the neighboring side of those properties, my question would be, well, I thought that those planters that you had along that wall that you've now sort of moved inboard to the other side of this patio space, I thought that the planters along that wall kind of created a buffer, if you will. In other words, prevented people from predominantly standing along that rail and kind of looming over to the neighboring yards. And I thought that there was some benefit. Well, all the while I get that it makes that wall 3.5 to 4 feet taller. Don't the planters that you had before create a buffer so that, people up on that patio are therefore then 3 or 4 feet away from that wall?
Yeah, that was our original intent. That's why we put the planters there, was to keep people away from the edge. I think in the last hearing, there was a lot of concern about trying to reduce the height of the wall. And so we went ahead and sort of removed it. And then maybe we can go back to the previous slide with the aerial. One more, I think it is. Keep going. Oh, that's more than one.
Okay.
As you can see, most of the area we saw in the back of those buildings are concrete or asphalt. A lot of things are being stored there are used construction materials. It's not really that much of an active open space or lawn area that you might envision some people using. So,
okay,
it's more of a non-active passive storage area. It's all concrete back there and beyond the wooden fence. So,
okay, I guess, yeah. I mean, I'll be perfectly blunt. I personally, honestly, didn't have as much of a concern of the height of those walls because there was a buffer of those planters, again, that kept the users up on that patio away from that guardrail, as opposed to now there's a guardrail that is a metal rail and it's less solid, but people are up there leaning on that rail, having their conversation, and they're kind of looming over what could be some rear yards in the future. Okay, I get what you're saying right now. They're not. They're, paved areas and carports and what have you. I'm a little concerned about that. And I fully recognize that this is a minor detail that now that we're kind of picking at. I generally think that this is something that you might think a little bit further on. Talk to the developer a little bit more. And if other commissioners feel the same, I don't know. But if that were the case, it could come back to us as an FYI, as a revision, or even just a administrative revision that's worked through with staff. I don't think it's a major piece of the project, but it is a detail that I think is going to be important to making that patio space feel comfortable both for the users and for the neighbors. Just when I saw that change, it kind of struck me. So,
Well,
but that's just where I'm at right now on it. So,
I appreciate your input. I think that was a dilemma we faced because originally we were trying to keep people away from the edge, and we had the wall. That's why we had the planter there.
right.
But the feedback I got from the commission in the last presentation was that they felt the wall looked too massive. We didn't show a lot of the detail that was there, the landscaping, the fence and things like that. After going out and taking an inventory, we started to realize, wow, the wall is not as high. And we went ahead and made the decision to move the planter. The client asked us to do it, to get the profile down and put the metal rails so that the wall would look shorter from the back.
Okay. Well, if that was your takeaway, I can't fault you for that. So maybe we'll see what other commissioners say. So thank you for dialoguing with me.
Thank you.
All right, I don't see any other commissioners who would like to speak. I will just jump in and say that I kind of second that comment about the railing at the back of the property. I'm wondering if there is a hybrid approach of a wall that maybe has landscaping growing over it, so that to help soften that view from the north side, and also work as a bit as a sound buffer and visual barrier from both sides. So, and then I too also wanted to add the comment about the downspout over the stair tower. That also jumped out at me looking at the drawings again, and would appreciate you taking a look, Gary, at that relocation of that downspout. And I see that Commissioner Gall has some comments or questions.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So yeah, I'm looking at the building. I think it's come a long way. I really do like it. But when I kind of strip away some of the detail or the trees, I guess, on the awning, I think the ground floor is great. I think that's really good. But when I look at the second and third floors, especially the tower, and we spoke of this previously, it's kind of really a blank wall with a few windows poked in it. And there was a suggestion maybe for some Juliet balconies or some metalwork somewhere. I know that you guys have recessed the windows, which I think is going to be great. But even in the arched openings, if you look at those arched openings and you've added those fake downspouts, which I think is a good touch. But I don't know if there's an opportunity for maybe recessing a little bit of that wall to sort of emulate a railing there, on the upper floor. If you were to drop it in a couple of inches. But the one that really strikes me is that stair tower. And we talked about it in the previous minutes about, like I say, a Juliet or enlarging the windows or something. So I think that could still take one more pass, but I'd like to know what the other commissioners think about it. I mean, like I say, I like the renderings make it look great, but you're kind of focusing on the first floor. And as your eye travels up, it's really all in one plane as you go up, even in the center. There's some articulation with the beams or the columns as they approach each level, and there's the recesses, but there's a couple of blank flat spots on the front of the building that I think could use a little bit more articulation.
All right. So do we have any members of the public who would like to speak on this item? Do we have any emails?
We do not have any emails at publiccomment@burlingame.org, and we do not have any messages in the chat window.
Okay, with that, then I will close the public hearing. Are there any comments, commissioners? Commissioner Terrones?
Yeah. Well, having seen this several times now, I really appreciate, the changes that have been made. I think that they're subtle, but but I think critical. I actually really like the idea of changing the stucco color on that center mass along the facade. I think it really does add to the architecture. In regards to the added detailing that's been done, I think that it helps a lot with the scale. In terms of this stair tower, as Commissioner Gall was mentioning, I'm still of the mind that I see that as sort of a calm, sort of solid that is reminiscent to me again of the Casa Baywood architecture, which I've mentioned before, and is so striking in some of its very plain and substantive pieces of its facade. So I'm not bothered by that solid. You know, I get that the fact that it's in terms of a piece of utility, that downspout, it's a long downspout. You know, it's gonna have, there's gonna be more details to it, even if it were exposed like that. There would be brackets and attachments, etc. It could be actually an ornamental piece. It could be turned into a leader head that is ornamental near the top, that then takes that downspout to the interior and is more serviceable once it gets to the inside. You know, I think that there are options for it, but I'm okay with that solid because, again, I see that as sort of a calm and just sort of simple piece to the facade that kind of bookends, at least on that one side, this overall facade that has a lot of articulation, a lot of things going on. It's a stairwell. So you expect to see some peekaboo windows into those landings at the mid levels like they've got them. My main concern is really just, and it's minor, it's not a deal breaker, but my main concern is that back patio. To get that landscaping right, I would ask that the architect revisit that with the developer, and if they wanted to bring those planters back along that back side, they could work that through with staff. And I would leave it to staff as to whether or not that would need to come back as an FYI. But otherwise, for me, I think that the project is approvable at this point and should move forward.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Yeah, I would echo Commissioner Tronis's comments. I like the stairwell. Could be some detail there, but I do agree that with, you know, how much is going on with all the other surfaces, we do want to be careful to not make every surface, you know, a feature wall. But not having seen this the first time, I would agree with Commissioner Tronis on the patio on the back, that maybe having those planters there gives a little buffer. I appreciate that you listened to the commission and you made an effort towards it, but I think I would probably rather be seated closer to the building and overlooking some plants into those areas rather than actually using the space right up against the railing and looking at their stuff and or being seen. So I think it would be more comfortable as an outdoor space to be closer to the building and or even take advantage of shade opportunities that the building creates or overhangs that, you know, that you're using back there to make it a nice place to be, because we're kind of hoping that people will use it, not just have it as just open space.
Commissioner Gall?
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, you know, just back to my point, I just feel, you know, we're looking at two-dimensional drawings and renderings, and the building, I want to see this move forward. I like where it is. I'm just wondering if in the process of building this and detailing it out, I would ask the developer and the architect to look at the building as it's going up, and if you feel that it looks a little blank or a little plain, don't be shy about coming back and asking about additional ornamentation or, you know, because I think it's a big enough project, and I know you put a lot of work into it, and I appreciate that, but I don't necessarily think that it needs to be the final decision on all the small fine details. So if you see something as you're building it that you like, you know, please come forward or try something out that might add to the articulation on the front.
Commissioner Camerado?
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Gall. I was actually going to say that. So I think it's such a beautiful project and you've made such great strides. You've done some great work and I appreciate the changes. I also Would agree with my fellow commissioners about the planters in the back. I'd like to see a little bit of a buffer there. We don't know what those properties in the back might eventually do, and it might preserve some space between some common area there. So I like the idea of the planters, but overall, I think this is a great project. So thank you for all your hard work.
Commissioner Sargent?
Yeah, I would agree. I think this is ready to move forward, and I would prefer the planters in the back as well. And I like the chairwoman's suggestion about looking at some kind of hanging landscaping from that might grow over the edge. That might help soften that too.
All right. And I too echo what my fellow commissioners have stated. Thank you so much for working through these rounds of discussions with us and carefully listening to all of our comments. I think the street side, on the Donnelly side of this project, is going to add a lot of liveliness to the street. And I love all the articulation around in and around all of these openings. And I'm going to be very excited to see this built. And I see Commissioner Torres will add a comment, or maybe he'd like to move that we.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion.
Yeah.
I want to make a motion to approve or recommend approval to the council in that we would accept the analysis and findings of the mitigated negative declaration. Reiterate our previously stated support for the amendments to the downtown specific plan for support of the project. Approve the conditional use permit based on the findings in the staff report, and recommend approval of the lot merger in order for the project to move forward.
I second.
Thank you very much. We have a motion by Commissioner Torrones, seconded by Commissioner Sargent. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Camarado,
Aye.
Commissioner Gall.
Aye.
Commissioner Sargent,
Aye.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Aye.
Commissioner Torrones,
Aye.
Chair Say.
Aye. So the motion passes 6-0-0-1. This item is not appealable.
So thanks, everybody. Appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you, Mark. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
All right, now we'll move on to item 8F, 925 Howard Avenue. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? Seeing none, let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. May we please have a staff report?
This is an application for commercial design review for exterior facade changes and a second-story addition to an existing commercial building and front setback variance at 925 Howard Avenue, zoned MMU. With the proposed project, the total building footprint will remain 500 square feet. The proposed second-story addition, which is 531 square feet, will be located in the center of the building and would increase the size of the building to 4,031 square feet. The proposed property management office is permitted use in the zoning district. The Planning Commission Design Review Study Meeting on May 26th, the Commission noted concerns about parking variances and the design of the proposed second floor addition. The applicant submitted a response letter dated July 28th and revised plans, date stamped July 29th, to address the Commission's concerns. As noted in the staff report, a total of 4 off-street parking spaces are required based on the difference between the existing and proposed parking demand. With this application, 5 new parking spaces are proposed on site. 3 spaces located in the proposed vehicle lift, 1 independent parking space located adjacent to the vehicle lift, and 1 disabled accessible space located in tandem with the vehicle lift. For uses, the code requires that vehicles turn around and exit the site in a forward direction. The applicant proposes a vehicle turntable that allows cars to exit the garage without backing onto the street. I believe the applicant is prepared to provide you with a more detailed description of how this system works. So I'll leave it up to him to do that. As a policy, the downtown specific plan encourages creative approaches to providing on-site parking, which for this particular project would include the vehicle lift, tandem parking, and the vehicle turntable. Planning staff would note that with the implementation of these systems, the previously requested parking variances for the number of spaces and vehicles backing onto the street have been eliminated. The applicant has prepared a summary of the changes, but first, do you have any questions for staff?
Thank you. Commissioner Sargent, do you have a question?
I don't have a question, but I just forgot to or neglected to mention that I had a phone call with the applicant after the last commission hearing.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for staff? If not, I'm going to open the public hearing. Would the applicant please come forward, state your name, and add anything that you would like about your project?
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Stephen Stept. I'm with Philbin Architecture. So yes, at the last meeting, we had some very good feedback from the commissioners. So we took all these to heart and made adjustments to the 3 items discussed. So thank you for your feedback. It's, I'm hopeful that you'll appreciate and recognize the changes, now proposed. So we created this presentation to really focus on the 3 elements of parking, the second level form, and also some planting issues. That's kind of what I noted here on the right. So let's go to the next slide. And I did speak to Commissioner Sargent by phone. I did try to reach out to a couple other commissioners by email and never really heard back from them. So we move forward with this application. So essentially what this is showing is where we were at in the May meeting, where we basically were asking for a variance for parking. We only had the 2 spaces. And on the right is where we are today. There'll be a slide coming up here that actually shows the operation of how one comes in to use these various spaces. But essentially we have the lift, which actually holds 3 cars. And we have the space on the right that gives us 4 spaces plus the ADA van accessibility space, which is on the turnaround. So the new solution really was a result of relooking at the issue of tandem. When we came to the commission last time, we were under the understanding that tandem was not allowed. But as we talked to the planning staff again, we realized that that was only a limitation for single family. So that opened up the discussion to allow these spaces in the back. So now, we've been able to eliminate those parking variance requirements. Also, when we presented this idea of the turnaround, planning and building staff asked us to have a certified access specialist provide a detailed certification that this was a reasonable and permittable solution. So there was a report that was issued that was presented that, in fact, shows that this is a good solution. They actually helped us quite a bit to detail this, to figure out the nuances of how to really create this. So let's go to the next slide, page 3, I think it is. Yeah, so this is basically showing just the key elements here. This is a photograph on the left of what the turntable looks like. It's a flush turntable. Basically, we are going to be required to demo part of the slab and reinsert this with a new slab. But essentially, you drive onto this and it spins around. So that's how it operates. And then the diagram on the right is just a diagram from the company that we're thinking of using the lift. This is not the 4-compartment lift, but it works in the same way, where you drive in the same spot every time and it rotates you around and it delivers you out at the same spot every time. Let's go to the next slide. This slide shows how it operates. The slide on the 1 is showing how car number 1 comes in. You basically drive in, over the turnaround, you pull to the space to the right. The next slide in the middle is showing how you drive straight in. Cars number 2, 3, and 4 could go onto the lift, all driving straight in. It kind of maneuvers the car once you get out to the position on the lift that you want to, and you call it back when you want to get it out. And then the one on the right is the accessibility van. So what happens with the van comes in, it gets on the turntable, it spins around, and then it puts the van in the proper position for meeting access compliance for van and the occupant of the wheelchair getting out there on the right side and going into the building. So this is essentially how the system works. The idea is when you back out, as the diagrams are kind of showing on the left in the middle, is you pull out of your space, you turn around and you go straight out. So we're really excited about the fact that we were able to eliminate. We totally agree it's safer to drive straight out. And so that's how we solved the parking issue. And now we don't require any variances for parking. Let's go to the next slide. So the next slide is wanting to talk more about, I don't know if the image in the left is going to show up here for some reason, but we can go to the first slide to look at it. Something must be stuck there. But essentially, I wanted to talk a little bit about the second story. We weren't really able to maybe describe this clearly before we came to the commission the last time. So I wanted to talk about the height. We did make a couple of adjustments to the form. And at the same time, we did look at alternate forms. The Commissioner Loftus was the one who mentioned that maybe this deserved another look and had mentioned something about the character and the height of this element and said it wasn't a deal breaker in his mind, but he thought we should look at it again. So we did. We tried a few different forms. They're kind of light in the slide here for some reason, but we showed a single slope, a pitch roof, and a butterfly. So we were trying to play with different things. And honestly, when we first started this project, if you go back to the very beginning, because it might show the front of the building better. This is the slide that's kind of missing on that page. The idea of this building was to transform this ordinary industrial concrete building into a simple, elegant, and modern office space. In doing this, we added this slatted rain screen, and we really finely detailed this entry space. So these portals or these openings, these punched openings on the lower level, really is how we kind of, elegantly detailed this box. The internal second level was really meant to be an extrusion of the form vertically. And as you can see, it's a little bit of a contrast. It's this lighter rectangular form with more glass, in terms of the openness of the space. And the ceiling is meant to be indoor, outdoor. We did take off the south and the east and the north overhangs of the roof to make it a little bit more finely detailed instead of having just the building with a roof as a hat on top of it, so we can kind of define the edges a little bit more clearly. But our feeling was we can go back to the other slide if you don't mind, with the images of the different options. We really felt like some of these other ideas were just too stylistically. We were really trying to do something modest, something in scale, something that was really in cohesion with the minimal modernist box at the lower level. So we feel like we've achieved that in terms of an elegant solution. And I think, it did serve to have us take a closer look at it in order to trim off those two overhangs on the east and the north side. So we do think the form is proper in scale and really not impactful for the neighborhood. One thing I wanted to make sure was clear that we didn't have a chance to talk about last time is the height of the building. It's really only 7 feet higher, the roof, than the edge of the parapet. You can see in the section how the second level is really tucked down about 42 inches, really the height of a guardrail from the edges of the existing roof. So in scale, we don't really have a second story sitting on top of a first story. We really have this building kind of extruding out from within the lower form. And it actually, when you look at the overall images that are in our original presentation, the building is fairly low just because the lower level in the parapet kind of cuts off your eye level of that view. We can go to the next slide. And then the final comment was about planting. We had shown some street trees, and we had mentioned that we weren't able to do street trees along Howard because of an existing storm water drain, unfortunately, that prevented us from putting 2 or 3 trees in front of this. And Chair C had mentioned maybe take a look at the entry and maybe there's an opportunity to create a planter there or some type of greenery that can soften the front of the building. We thought that was a good idea. So here we show now a raised planter that can bring some greenery to the street, maybe gives also a little bit sense of privacy to the occupants inside. And so that's how we solve that issue. Happy to take any questions about any of those items.
Right. Are there any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Schmidt?
Yeah, hi. I appreciate the design and where you guys are going with it. Just thinking about that second floor area, it's very open and everything, and I like it. Have you guys checked out the sun exposure and how the overhangs are going to help you with all of that? I'm a little nervous that it becomes a hot box up there.
Yeah, well, we have clear story windows on the let's see, would be the east side. They're on the, and that overhang that actually you see on the right, that actually is on the south. So it's a pretty deep overhang where the glass is in the deck. So, and then the overhang that you see with the window slightly appearing in this image, which is actually the, I guess that's the west elevation. We feel like we have adequate overhang there for those windows. So yeah, we feel pretty comfortable about that.
Okay.
Well, thank you. I wanted to say that I appreciate your thoughtfulness and the consideration for the parking. I think it's great that you've come up with a creative solution to meet the parking requirements and your needs. I also like that you have trimmed back the eaves on two sides. Is that correct? Of the upper level, and makes it look less like a hat on top of this upper floor, but a little bit more crafted and deliberate, and providing you with some sunshade. And I do like the addition of the softness of the vegetation along the front there too. So I don't necessarily have any questions, but wanted to comment on those items. It looks like Commissioner Sargent might have a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Stephen, the applicant, for the work he did on the parking. I think that's a really great solution, and I appreciate you figuring out a way to do this without asking for a variance.
Sure.
Great. Do we have any members of the public who'd like to speak on this item? Did we get any emails by chance?
Sorry, no emails, and there are no messages in the chat.
Okay. With that, then I will close the public hearing. Commissioners' comments? Commissioner Terrace?
Yeah, thank you. Well, first I'd like to say that, you know, I always admired this little, or liked this little building when I passed by it. And so I'm very glad to see that somebody is treating it kindly. You know, along the vein of recycling through reuse and renovation, I'm very impressed with how much effort and energy is going into the architecture and into the renovation of this building. So thank you, Stephen. I really admire and appreciate the design that's been put forth. You know, I think it's a well-crafted and good-looking little building, and I think it's very honest in terms of how it presents itself, particularly with the sort of penthouse that you have up on that second floor. You know, you've worked the overhangs around to where they're needed, you know, above that roof deck that's sort of on that south side, and a little bit of an overhang on the southwest side where you're going to get some light coming in there. So I think it sort of speaks of honesty, and it's a nice, humble design. I think that the variance is supportable. There are exceptional circumstances in that the building is built out property line to property line. So we have to offer some relief in order for this to happen. So I think that the project is approvable at this point. Thank you for the efforts.
All right. Do we have any comments, or would anyone like to make a motion? Commissioner Sargent?
Yeah, I would agree with Commissioner Terrace's assessment of the project, and I make a motion that we approve the project with the findings in the staff report.
And I'll second that motion. So we have a motion by Commissioner Sargent, seconded by Commissioner Say. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Camarado,
Aye.
Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Sargent,
Aye.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Aye.
Commissioner Terrace,
Aye.
Chair Say.
Aye. And once again, we have a motion passing 6-0-0-1. An action by the Planning Commission is appealable to the City Council within 10 days of the Planning Commission's action. If the Commission's action has not been appealed or called up for review by the City Council by 5 p.m. on the 10th day, the action becomes final. In order to be effective, Appeals must be in writing and must be accompanied by appeals fee of $1,075, which includes noticing costs. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
All right, so we will now move on to design review study items. Item 9A, 912 Morel Avenue. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? Seeing none, let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. May we have a staff report, please?
This is an application for design review for a first and second story addition to an existing single-family dwelling at 912 Morel Avenue, zoned R1. The proposed project includes a first floor addition at the front of the house and a new second story, which would increase the floor area to 2,899 square feet, or 3,262 square feet is the maximum allowed. That concludes the staff report, and I can take any questions first. Otherwise, the applicant is available.
Okay, do we have any questions for staff? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to open the public hearing. Will the applicant please come forward, state your name, and add anything you'd like about your project?
Yes, hello. This is Jesse Gersa from Gersa Conceptual Designs. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. I'd like to thank the commissioners for reviewing our project, and we're really happy to submit this for your review and approval. Again, this design is a basic two-story addition to the residence for a growing family. And we're really excited about the project, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have regarding the design.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for the applicant?
I do. I'm a neighbor behind the applicant.
Oh, just a moment, please. We're going to have the commissioner speak first, and then I'll ask the public to ask any questions. Commissioner Gall?
Yeah, hi Jesse. I had one question. I think I know the answer, but on your right side elevation, I can see replacing the window in the living room and the new windows on the second floor. But has there been any thought given to replacing the existing windows so that the Mitten pattern matches the new windows? It looks like those are going to stay down that side.
I believe. Let me find that elevation. Oh, here we are. Oh, you mean the smaller windows that are adjacent to the fireplace?
Yeah, and then all the way down the side of the house, you've got more windows that are not of the design pattern for the second floor than you have of you got more of the old ones and the new ones, I guess.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean those windows were recently installed not too long ago. That's why we didn't change those out, because those are all existing. We didn't want to create more work than we had to. Therefore, that's why I kind of came in with the window pattern that we have for the new addition. It kind of lends itself to the existing, but yet gives it a nicer look on the exterior, on the front of the facade.
Yeah, I agree. I think that window style works with the design. I didn't notice that those didn't look, and I don't remember looking at them to see if they were newer or older. I thought that they were older windows, so that's why that kind of was steering my question. But I know that from experience that an addition and renovation like this, the house is going to get pretty much worked over. So I would hope that, it's not going to break the deal for me, but I would hope that the applicant or the property owners would consider changing those to match the new windows if the budget allows, I guess.
Okay, no, I appreciate that, and I could speak to them in regards to that. No problem.
Thank you.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Yeah, actually, that was my same area too. Is I was noticing the windows and the new versus the old. If they're relatively new windows and you're kind of matching in finish and style, then I think it can work. But if they're too far different, I think you're gonna maybe regret it later.
Understood. Yeah, and just a let you know that, I mean, not too long ago, they had the rear part of the addition done on the back of the residence, and that's when all those windows were changed. So again, we didn't want to sit and rip all those things out and reinstall it. As you know, construction is a little expensive, so we don't want to go too crazy.
Yep, got it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Jesse, I have a quick question. It looks like maybe the fire or the chimney might be missing on the rear elevation,
Oh, okay.
correct?
I will put that in since we need that.
I think it's just a drafting oversight.
Yeah. Okay. So, yep, I see. You're correct.
And is the chimney proposed to be clad in stucco?
It is, yes.
Okay.
So, yeah. Mhm.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? If not, I will like to ask any members of the public who would like to speak. Ma'am, I think you had, I'm not sure who it was that spoke earlier.
It was me, Mary Ann Sacedo. I'm the neighbor, not directly behind them, but to the left of them.
Did you have any questions for the applicant? Mary Ann?
What's the setback? How many feet is the house from the fence?
The
back of the house.
The back of the house with the driveway side?
Yes.
Okay, that is, well, it's currently what is existing, it's 12 feet, 3.5 inches, which it would be to the existing pop out on the lower level for the dining room windows. Would be, we would have on the left-hand side, that would be like kind of a projection window on that side, but the main second story on the driveway side would be.
I guess what I'm asking is how close is the new house to the fence?
It would be, I'd say about 15 feet.
Okay, so it's relatively close. Okay. I'm just, wondering, I mean, I've got someone looking down into my house now, and now I'm gonna have someone on the other side looking down into my house. But it looks like there's trees there, correct? Are they planting new trees or are they keeping that existing one?
We're keeping all the existing landscape on the property for now, as far as I know.
Okay, because the existing trees, it's great. It protect, gives a.
Yeah, we have
some
no
privacy.
tearing that out.
You will, okay, will not be. Okay. And what did you say the total square footage of the house was going to be? 3,000
Oh, no.
or 2,000?
The proposed square footage is 2,899 square feet.
Okay, well, almost 3,000. Okay. What's the upstairs? What's it going to be? Bedrooms or what?
Yeah, for a growing family, they're just bedrooms upstairs.
Okay. And the one that's facing the back of the house, what bedroom is that? Is that a master?
No, the master is staying downstairs still. The one that's just a bedroom upstairs.
Okay, so one of the kids' rooms. Okay.
Yeah, yes.
Okay. All right, that's what I need to know.
Okay, thank you, Mary. If you have any questions, Mary Ann, please call me. I have no problems to answer any questions, and if I knew you're a concern of any sort, I would have been more than happy to answer them before the meeting.
Oh, I mean, like I said, I just wanted to know the privacy thing. That's all. That was my main concern. About how long do you think it's going to take to build?
Wow. Well, if we have a real good contractor, perhaps 4 months, 5 months. What do you think, Commissioner Gull?
All right.
Through the chair, if I may, maybe we can have the applicant connect with the next door neighbor to answer any other questions she may have about the project.
Yes, thank you. I was going to suggest the same.
Okay,
Commissioner Gall, did you have a question?
Yeah. I think maybe I was hearing this wrong, but Marianne, are you the neighbor to the left or are you behind the property and to the left? Because
I'm not directly behind, I'm to the left.
Oh, you're the neighboring property on the left.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
All right. Are there any other questions from the public? Do we have any emails?
We do not have any emails on this item, and we do not have anything in the chat.
All right. With that, I will close the public hearing. Commissioners' comments?
I like it when everybody's quiet.
That's a good sign. That's Commissioner Camarado.
I have a question.
I really like the project. I think you did a great job on this, Jesse. And I think we could bring it back on the consent calendar.
I'll second that.
All right. We have a motion by Commissioner Camarado, seconded by Commissioner Terrace. Any discussion on the motion? Commissioner Camarado, is that your hand up from before?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. So seeing that there's no discussion on the motion, may we please have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Camarado,
Aye.
Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Sargent,
Aye.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Aye.
Commissioner Terrace,
Aye.
Chair Say.
Aye. This motion passes 6-0-0-1. This action is not appealable. Moving on to agenda item 9B, 1110 Bernal Avenue. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? Seeing none, let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. May we please have a staff report?
Sure, this is an application for design review for a new 2-story single-family dwelling and detached garage at 1110 Bernal Avenue, zoned R1. The applicant proposes to demolish more than 50% of the existing first floor walls of the house. Therefore, the proposed project meets the definition of substantial construction and is considered to be a new house. The existing detached garage will be demolished and rebuilt, as will the existing guest house. The total proposed floor area on the site, including the single-family dwelling, the garage, and the ADU, is 5,928 square feet, where 6,304 square feet is the maximum allowed. The proposed detached garage will provide 2 covered parking spaces, and 1 additional uncovered space will be provided in the driveway, and this meets the off-street parking requirement for the project. Per state law, review of the accessory dwelling unit is administrative only and is not reviewed by the Planning Commission. Planning staff will be checking to make sure that the ADU complies with requirements. The only application being requested for this project this evening is design review. At this time, I'd be happy to take questions for staff. Otherwise, the applicant is available.
Thank you. Commissioner Sargent, do you have a question?
Yeah, Ruben, can you remind me what the fence height requirements are in the front setback?
Sure, the fence is within the front setback. So basically between the front of the house and the front property line is 5 feet. And that could be 5 feet solid or 4 foot solid plus 1 foot of lattice. But the maximum is 5 feet.
So it shows it in the staff report picture, but it's not clearly outlined on the site plan that there's an existing fence there that appears to be over 6 feet. How does that fit into the scope of the work on this project if it's non-conforming?
Well, let's see, existing non-conforming fences, generally, we do code enforcement on a complaint basis. But since the project is being reviewed by the Planning Commission as a whole, including landscaping, you can certainly request or ask the applicant to address the fence height.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Are there any other questions for staff? If not, I'm going to open the public hearing. Would the applicant please come forward and state your name and add anything that you would like regarding this project?
Good evening. My name is Todd Bayless. I'm with Flurry Bryant Design Group. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. So we really came into this project with 4 goals in mind. First of all, this is the existing residence of a family of 6, so they wanted a little more space. And then second, the street presence. You've all been by this site, and I'm sure you've seen that it feels very tucked away behind a large fence and with the main entry down the side alley. So we will be replacing the fence, and we will be relocating the entrance to the front of the building to improve that street presence and make it a little more inviting. Number 3, the existing house has a lot of flat roofs, which we found unsightly, so we've added some pitched roofs. And finally, we wanted to improve the usability of the site. That's why we're replacing the garage. Right now, it's at a really weird angle on the site that makes getting into it impossible. The owners didn't like the location of the existing ADU. They wanted it closer to the pool so it could be used for guests and company. And that's pretty much it. I'd be happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Sargent?
Yeah, the first question I had was on the front elevation. On the left side, I understand you're dealing with a couple different floor heights, so that probably made tying this together a little hard. The way those planter boxes work under those windows with the shutters, it feels like it kind of accentuates the height of the second floor. And I was wondering if you considered taking that shed roof there and eliminating the planters and basically raising the pitch of that roof so it goes up to the window more. It seems like it would make the second floor seem a little shorter and kind of increase the importance of the first floor.
So your goal is to make the second floor feel a little less tall?
Yeah, I would think, yeah.
Yeah, it's something we can look at. I think maybe bringing the planter boxes down to the first level would help to maybe give a little bit more symmetry as well.
Okay, great. If you could look at that, that would be great. And the second question I had is there a basement in this house?
There is an existing basement. We're not planning to touch it as part of this work.
Okay, I mean, maybe staff can give some direction here, but I would think that should be on the, I didn't see it on the floor plan other than reference through the stairs. So maybe you could connect with staff and see if that needs to be included in the plans.
Yes, Commissioner Sargent, you're correct. So when the project comes back, the basement should be included on the plans. There should be a basement level showing access to the basement, how the basement is used, whether it's for recreational purposes or for utilities, but that should be part of the plan package.
It should also include the ceiling height as well, right?
Correct. You know, it could be exempt from floor area, depending on its ceiling height and how high above the grade it rises. So staff will be working with the architect to make sure they show that accurately.
Thanks. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Terrace?
Yes, thank you. Well, first of all, I had a similar question or reaction to the front facade in that the windows along above the play area and study up on that second floor, it just looks a little, it's fairly top heavy with the emphasis on that upper floor. It's almost as if the windows want to be flipped just in terms of scale. My other question is in regards to the roofing. I see on the proposed roof plan, on the main roof, it calls out for Class A comp shingles, but then on the exterior elevations, it looks to be rendered, it notes metal standing seam, new standing seam metal roof.
The elevations are correct. That was something that changed, so the note was an oversight.
And that would be your preference or your intent to do it with all metal roof? On that?
That is the owner's preference, correct.
I see. Okay. My other question then is on that front facade, there's a balcony to the, or the railing to the master bedroom balcony on that second floor. Is that a metal railing that we're looking at? Or?
The railing is wood.
Oh, it's wood. Okay. And that, so then the pattern that you have, that's sort of a, I don't know what you'd call it. That's sort of in a diagonal pattern. That would just be a wood pattern.
Yeah, it's a Chippendale pattern.
Okay. All right, got it. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Gall.
Yeah, thank you. So I guess the property owners don't like Spanish style, huh? It's a dramatic change. But anyways, couple of questions. So on your front elevation, tell me if I'm reading this correctly. The existing looks like the first floor plate height is 9'11.5", and then on the new it's 10'2.5". Is that correct?
We're not changing the plate height. It's a little complicated because of the different floor heights.
So there's some steps on the inside then?
That's right, yeah. There's a lot of steps on the inside.
Okay. All right. Then staying on that front elevation, I'm assuming you're showing those first floor windows on the left-hand side as the shutters closed. Are they intended to be closed at all times, or is that going to be open like the upper floor?
They're hurricane style shutters, so they're like an awning. So they would only open a little bit.
Okay.
They can be propped open.
So the louvers would just open, or the shutters themselves would open flat to the wall?
They hinge at the top and at the bottom like a
okay. And the chimney on that front elevation, that you're intending for that to match the siding?
That's correct.
Have you considered any other materials there? Or you just
no, we haven't
going to match that siding?
Anything else? Did you have something?
Well, I don't know. It looks a little odd to me with that material up there on the metal roof. I don't know. I was just asking. But I don't know what the other commissioners think, but I don't know. To me, it looks a little out of place, but I would suggest trying a different material up there, even stucco or something, but I'm not sure.
We can play with some options. See what the owner likes.
Okay, those are the only questions I had.
I have a few questions. On your site plan, there are a couple of notations of 6-foot wooden gates. Are those 6 feet tall or 6 feet wide?
That'll be the height. We have not done any elevations of that yet. So like you said, it'll be 5 feet solid, and then it'll have some kind of lattice work at the top probably.
I think it's supposed to be, is it 4 foot solid and 12 inches of lattice, or is it 5 feet high plus 12 inch of lattice?
Through the chair, yeah, the maximum fence height allowed in the front setback is 5 feet, including the lattice.
So, so Todd, you may want to just pay attention to that limitation on the height. And then, let's see, with the first floor at the entrance, that height was like, your plate height is, what was it, like 9'11" in the entry? Is that the entry ceiling height?
I'm not sure where you're looking there.
At your entry foyer, is the ceiling height 9'11"?
Are you looking at the floor plan? I'm not sure.
The ceiling height of your foyer, internal height.
It's the existing height. I want to say it's just under 10 feet.
Okay, so 9'11". Per your elevation, it says 9'11". So I just want to double check. And so what is the height of that, the proposed entry door?
Mm, 7 feet.
7 feet. Okay. And did you plan to prepare any rendering of this property to show us or model the three-dimensional aspects? I don't know, you might have submitted it. We don't see anything in our application.
We don't have any renderings or plans to have them done at this time.
Okay. All right, thank you. Commissioner Schmidt?
Yeah, on that topic of rendering, and I don't know if it's about rendering as much as about having a good 3D, but there's a lot of surfaces going on in the front of this house, pushing back and forward. And frankly, I'm a little concerned about the squareness of the columns on the second floor and on the entry and how well that's going to go together, and then how much you're pushing forward and backwards on the surfaces. I mean, I understand where the surfaces are relative to the existing house, but I think is the way the elevation reads now, it's a big box. And I think that the elevation, a three-dimensional look at that front would probably make it a lot easier to fully see how those things are pushing and pulling, and to appreciate some of the detailing that may be happening.
Well, it's a conversation I'll have with the owner.
Okay. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak on this item? Do we have any emails?
There are no emails. There was one question from a member of the public asking, is there an estimate on full construction time? So it's more a question, and I think that would be to the applicant.
We don't have a project schedule at this time. I suspect the project of this size would be 6 months to a year. But I don't know when that would start. We don't have it scheduled yet.
That was all we had in chat, and again, nothing else in email.
Okay, thank you. With that, I'm going to close the public hearing. Commissioners, any comments? Commissioner Terrones?
Yeah, I had the same reaction as Commissioner Schmidt, just in terms of, my concern is we have a fairly charming, if not perhaps tired and perhaps a bit dated Spanish Revival style, but it's fairly charming and articulated. And what we're now being presented is something that is fairly boxy. And it's, and maybe that there's some type of architecture that's intended, but I look, for example, at that front elevation, and it takes it and creates sort of a broad frontage. It sounds like there's some either reluctance or uncertainty as to whether or not they want to provide a rendering, but I think that honestly would help in terms of moving this forward and getting approvals. If that helps convey to the client that it may be something that's necessary, I think it could help present the design. I'm particularly concerned also about the left side elevation. It's just one big broad gable with the spattering of windows along that side. So I have some concerns about the scale and some of the materials. I agree with Commissioner Gall, or at least I'm seem to be where his general sentiment about the chimney. It always strikes me as odd to have something that's combustible as the material that you're cladding a chimney with. It sort of, it feels like a tract home. You know, it normally would want to be some stone or brick or even just simple stucco. So the other thing, again, I'll go back to the front elevations, the interplay of the second story windows versus the first story, and sort of the lack of a typical or traditional hierarchy is making it a little bit difficult just in terms of being able to approve the massing. You know, I'm not saying it has to be a pure and absolute style, but when I look at what we're being presented versus what's there, we're losing the charm and the scale and being presented with something that's broad and semi-flat. So I had concerns about that. I don't know if it's a project that could benefit by going through a design review consulting. It might help, but I do have some concerns in terms of the detailing and scale.
Commissioner Camerado?
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Terrace. My first impression was I thought it could use design review. There's a lot of different materials here, and I felt it was very boxy compared to the house that's there now. So that was my sentiment on this.
Commissioner Gall?
Yeah, you know, when I first pulled up to the site, I thought, wait, I'm in the wrong spot because it's such a dramatic change from what's there. Because I know that house, I saw that house when it was for sale with the adjacent lot, and then it was split years ago. I think it's a charming Spanish style home, but this is such a dramatic change. It was hard to swallow for a little while. But what strikes me most about this design is it seems a little confused to me. It seems like there's so many different elements of so many architectural styles, and it doesn't really know what it really wants to be. I agree with the comments about the scale and the boxiness of it, but there's too many elements going on that don't dovetail together. I mean, if you look at the proposed rear elevation on the right-hand side, you've got a casement pair, a fixed window, and a round window all right next to each other. It's just like, what's going on there? I have to tell you, maybe it's the lines of the horizontal siding versus the lines with the standing seam metal roof, but it almost seems like, you know, plaid pants with a striped shirt or something. It doesn't work. I mean, I'm agreeing with the comments about a design review consultant on this because I'm just not seeing this holding together well.
Commissioner Sargent?
Yeah, I would agree with those comments about the design review consultant, and I think the chair was touching on this during her questions, but I think one thing that I think would benefit from a look is the proportions of the front entry doors, both their height and also their height in relation to the porch roof. It feels like it's a really massive porch roof with fairly small doors. So I think those doors could benefit from being either 8 foot tall, or the porch roof could be the front porch roof could be moved down. So I would move we refer this to a design review consultant.
I'll second that.
All right, so we have a motion by Commissioner Sargent, seconded by Commissioner Gall. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Camerado?
Aye.
Commissioner Gall?
Aye.
Commissioner Sargent?
Aye.
Commissioner Schmid?
Aye.
Commissioner Terrace?
Aye.
Chair Say.
Aye. The motion passes 6-0-0-1. This action is not appealable. So we will move on to agenda item 9C, 137 Costa Rica Avenue. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? Seeing none, let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. May we please have a staff report?
Sure. This application is for design review for a remodel and two-story addition to the rear of an existing two-story single-family dwelling at 137 Costa Rica Avenue, zoned R1. A historic resource evaluation was prepared for this property since it's located within the Burlingame Park subdivision. The results of the evaluation concluded that it is not individually eligible for listing in the national or California registers under any criteria. The applicant is proposing a remodel in addition to the rear at the first and second floors of the house. With the proposed project, the floor area will increase to 3,613 square feet, or 3,705 square feet is the maximum allowed. The only application being requested for this project is design review. At this time, I can take questions of staff. Otherwise, the applicant is available.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for staff? Seeing none, I'm going to open the public hearing. Would the applicant please step forward, state your name, and add anything that you would like about your project?
Good evening. My name is Adam Biddle of Architectural Allure. I'm the architect for the project. Thank you for taking the time this evening. I know we're heading towards the end of the agenda here. The owners of this property, they're a growing family. They're very excited to move to this neighborhood. Obviously, Costa Rica is a really nice place, especially to raise a family. They fell in love with this charming home that's situated, to be frank, within quite a bit of new construction, larger two-story homes. They love the scale and charm of this Cape Cod style home. So as you can see, and I see the little 3D massing views are up there to hopefully help you see how we're working off existing. The idea was really to do minimal work to the front half of the house, what's exposed to the street and public realm. Besides a couple changes to the upstairs dormer bedrooms to meet egress and to make the rooms a little more livable. We're looking to keep the front half of the house as is. If you take a look at the existing rear of the house now, and specifically the second floor, that's where we're looking to make improvements. And one of the reasons we are here in front of Planning Commission is our second floor increase is over 100 square feet. Our net second floor addition is about 250 square feet for reference. One note that Ruben mentioned in terms of the FAR limit, that we are approaching the max. A little over 500 of that comes from the detached non-conforming garage, and also a decent sized open trellis that we're kind of using as an outdoor deck. That applies towards FAR. So the actual house is closer in the proposed to 2,800 square feet. So when you look at the new rear forms of the house, we're working off the existing main ridge that runs transverse on the lot, and using a combination of gable forms to tie in with the existing. Our roof pitches to the rear reduce a little bit just to get us that head height while working under the limited height that the existing house has. And then the ground floor rear addition is where we opened up a larger great room, working off the existing plate height, 8'4". That's consistent at the front of the house. And that's where we had a little more fun and push the design to maybe a more updated look, to meet their taste. And the rear of the property, it's a really deep lot, great significant trees in the back. We have a redwood tucked to the northwest corner, a couple others on the opposite corner. So it's a well-screened property. In pursuing this project, we pursued our own neighbor outreach to the adjacent properties, the rear property, and directly across the street. The owners sent a letter directly to each of them, and we corresponded with a side neighbor and gave some info in how we coordinated our upstairs windows for privacy to their existing residents. I believe we also received support email from the rear neighbor as well. So At this time, I'd be happy to take any questions you have.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Gall?
Yeah, I just have one question, and it's more of a practical building matter, I think, than an architectural matter. And that just has to do, I'm looking at your roof plan, that big area past the peak towards the rear, you got that as a 1.5 by 12-inch pitch, is that correct?
Around 1.5 to 12, 2 to 12, somewhere in
And I don't think, and looking at your rendering in the lower right-hand corner, what's on the screen, I don't know that you're necessarily going to see it, but I think as a practical matter, you might want to explore that pitch with some roofers, because for a typical composition roof, the roofers that I work with don't like to go much below 2 and 12. And even at that, they're kind of, you know, they're not real comfortable. But like I said, I don't think it's going to be visible based on your rendering here, except for it would be visible out the windows up above. So, and I don't know if there's a better material, but you know, you get down to some of those torch downs or those, some of those fire and ice shield things, and they're not too attractive. But I like the design overall, but that was just the only thing that popped up in my mind.
Okay, good point. And I would point out the existing rear roof that spans across the whole length of the back of the house. That is a built-up roof. You are correct. You know, roofers, and when you can get under 2.5, 3, and 12, we may have to consider a change in that material. But we were looking to hide that with the adjacent cross gables. So, like you said, I'm not sure it's going to be too visible, but definitely something we'll explore.
Yep.
Commissioner Terrace.
Yeah, thank you, Adam. This is more just a curious question. It's not a real critical question, but in reading the plans, I'm trying to decipher, do you know, in terms of the history of the house, was that second floor an addition at some point previously?
Ooh, good question. I mean, my own personal take would be yes, and same with the rear ground floor. Just in walking through the home, I'd have to look through. To be honest, I don't remember off the top of my head looking through the historic evaluation to see if there was a record.
Okay, it was more curiosity, because I'm asking the question because where I'm kind of leading, and I know this is more of a comment than a question, but you know, you're taking what was an awkward addition before and making it a little bit more graceful now with what you're doing with that the new second floor. So just a comment. Thank you.
Commissioner Schmidt.
Yeah, I just had a question about new versus existing windows. You say, I believe it's aluminum clad on the new windows. Are the old windows that you're going to retain similar, going to match?
We're not looking to match directly. The existing ones on the ground floor and around the front of the house, I believe, are wood windows, and we're looking to keep those. Similar to, say, if this did have historical significance, and then our new windows in the back, we're trying to increase the grid of the windows around the side of the house and upstairs. So it's not a perfect match, a little increase in scale and an update in material. If that answers your question?
Yeah, I'm just maybe even being careful though of performance. My own house previous to remodeling had 3 or 4 different generations of windows that poorly performed. And I was thrilled to have replaced them all.
Yeah, and just know, like on the rear side of the existing house, there's actually it looks like replacement vinyl windows with, you know, the false grids within the panes. So the front of the house we thought still had the charm of the older windows, but you are correct in terms of upgrading energy components.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Camerado.
So Adam, it looks like you did a really nice job with that second floor addition. It was, I know that house pretty well, and it was pretty funky upstairs. It was, I think, probably an old attic that maybe was permitted at some time, Richard. I don't know. But you've done a great job on it. And I love that you've kept the front of the house pretty consistent to the way it is now, and it's such a pretty house. So I like what you've done, and I appreciate everything that you've done to kind of maintain the original home.
Thanks.
Adam, I wanted to thank you for going to the extent of meeting with all the neighbors and presenting the plans. Because my one question was to ask you if you had talked with the neighbors to the left and right in terms of view alignment of the windows proposed on the second story overlooking your neighbors. And I'm presuming that that was addressed since you had met with your neighbors or met with the applicant.
Yeah, and just to clarify, we didn't meet in person during this time, but there were mailers and the email chain back and forth. The neighbor to the right, when you're looking from the street at the front of the house, did not respond, although I believe my clients have somewhat of a relationship to that neighbor. The one on the left, we did correspond with and provided detail in terms of the alignment of our upstairs bedroom window relative to their stairwell window. We confirmed to them we're about 15 feet apart, and we showed that our second floor on that side of the house, on the driveway side, does not extend past the existing ground floor of the existing house. So that satisfied her questions. And then on the opposite side of the house, where we have the master bathroom proposed, we're showing those windows with a sill height substantially off the floor for our own privacy.
Great, thank you. All right, do we have any comments from the public? Seeing none, are there any emails?
No emails and no messages in the chat.
Okay, thank you. With that, I will close the public hearing. Commissioners, comments? Commissioner Terrace?
Yeah, the only thing that's being asked of us is design review. So, you know, I look at sort of the face print of the house as being unchanged. I think that they're taking what sounds like was at one point a somewhat awkward attic build out on that second story and making it a little bit more graceful. I like the way that it's the massing is sculpted and centered and then kind of steps down towards the rear and then maintains itself with just some revisions to the dormers on the front, which actually I think will actually give better scale to that front facade versus the more tiny dormers that it has now. So I think that this is a good project and could move forward. I could even see it coming back on consent. So, but I don't know how other commissioners feel.
Commissioner Gall?
Yeah, I would second that motion. If in fact that was a motion by Commissioner Terrace. I think the project is done very well. It still has the same good street appeal, and I think that it holds together well.
Okay, I'll formally make it a motion. Or bringing this back on consent.
Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Terrace and seconded by Commissioner Gall. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Camarado?
Aye.
Commissioner Gall?
Aye.
Commissioner Sargent?
Aye.
Commissioner Schmidt? Aye. Commissioner Terrace?
Aye.
Chair Say.
Aye. So the motion passes 6-0-0-1. This action is not appealable. And
Thank
now
you.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Now we move on to agenda item number 10, commissioners' reports. Are there any commissioners' reports? Nope. Agenda item number 11, directors' reports.
This evening, we have two FYIs before you, one at 1906 Easton Drive and one at 1536 Howard Avenue. Please let us know if you'd like to call any of these off for further discussion.
I'd like to pull 1906 up for action.
Can you repeat that, Commissioner Torres? We couldn't hear you very clearly.
I'd like to pull 1906 up for action.
It's at 1906 Easton, you said?
1906 Easton Drive, yes.
Okay.
The issue, Ruben, is just the elimination of the muntins from the windows.
Okay. Great, we'll pass that along and schedule it for a regular action meeting in the future. And if I see no other comments, 1536 Howard can move forward. Commissioner Gall?
Yes, Commissioner Gall.
Yeah, no, I'll wait. I just have a question after we're done with the director's reports.
Okay. And I didn't have anything further.
Okay, is there anything else? Commissioner Gall?
Yeah, my question wasn't going around. I didn't see any sandwich boards anywhere this time.
Right, so since COVID-19.
We haven't had that for 2 months.
Yeah,
I've missed a couple meetings, but I'm just concerned about the neighbors and everyone.
Right. Yeah, I mean, at the start of COVID-19, back in March, when there was a shelter-in-place order, we decided, just out of an abundance of caution, not to, have applicants come into City Hall to pick up signs. They can't come in now anyways. However, we can discuss it with staff. Perhaps we prepare the signs and leave them outside, and they can pick them up and install them on site. Originally, we didn't think this was going to go on for so long, right? We thought a couple of weeks, couple of meetings, but here we are months later, and who knows how much longer this is going to go. So it's certainly something we can discuss with staff and get going again if we feel it's appropriate at this time. It does help for the neighbors.
Yeah, I just think it does, especially with a couple of the things that we saw tonight. I was surprised that no neighbors were chimed in on these meetings. So,
or the projects were great and they followed through on a lot of your suggestions.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Well, we certainly can't make it any easier to attend a meeting. So
right.
You can be in your PJs and be at the meeting. So if there isn't anything else, I would like to adjourn this meeting at 9:27 p.m.
Wonderful. Thanks, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
All right. Good night.